Our question is, what other rules apply to us but not to them? Rules for me and not for thee. That's the approach on COVID restrictions for too many bureaucrats and politicians. You know, one of the other outrages of the COVID lockdowns and restrictions is the, you've seen story after story where usually left-wing politicians impose draconian measures restricting the liberty of American citizens, and they violate those measures with impunity. They go to events, they don't wear masks. You may have seen Nancy Pelosi in a small business in San Francisco, the hairdresser that was most famous, where she wasn't wearing a mask. And our question is, what other rules apply to us but not to them? Rules for me and not for thee. That's the approach on COVID restrictions for too many bureaucrats and politicians. We filed a Freedom of Information Act lawsuit against the State Department for all documents related to national interest travel exemptions from the Biden administration to federal employees and their families related to the COVID-19 pandemic. So this is interesting. Now in January, almost as soon as he got into office, it was January 2021, President Biden issued a presidential proclamation prohibiting the entry of non-residents to America if they had been in the, an area in China. I don't know how to pronounce it, so I'm not going to say it. The United Kingdom, the Republic of Ireland, Brazil, and the Republic of South Africa in 14 days prior. The stated objective of this order was to prevent further spread of COVID-19. On April 30th, he extended the proclamation to cover those who had been in the Republic of India. So this was a big deal. Now, if you recall, Trump was called a racist for doing things like this, but that's a whole other matter. Now, what's the impact of these types of restrictions? And at this late stage, I think those restrictions are silly. But either way, these directives would have potentially caused, I don't know, tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of Americans to be separated from loved ones abroad. So the question is, could federal employees use their positions and connections to circumvent the travel bans by obtaining national interest exemptions? So basically a waiver that wouldn't be available to the typical American, but to likely a government employee. So this is what we do. This is our thinking. We're very careful about our FOIA requests. We usually go in saying, what is it that's interesting here? And let's figure out a request to get access to it. And what we thought was interesting here was to say, let's get some information and statistics regarding the total number of NIE employee requests, national interest exemption requests, made during the public health emergency from federal and non-federal employees, as well as the number of rejections and approvals of these requests. So we've got this thesis. Let's figure it out. Let's get the data and see what conclusions we can draw. In many ways, that's kind of like science, isn't it, right? So the FOIA science led us to file this FOIA request for that type of information. And of course, the government being the government, they don't care. They don't want to respond to this basic information. And it's not a lot of material we're asking for. It's only 2 years of material. How many exemptions could have been dealt with here? I don't think that many, or there shouldn't have been a lot. So again, it suggests they have something to hide. As I've said, COVID restrictions have too often ignored by government officials, and Americans have a right to know federal employees use their positions of power to see their families when others could not. So that's why we filed this FOIA lawsuit, and I think it's a great little lawsuit, and I'm looking forward to getting the information. And I suspect we're going to get the information because there's really no good reason to withhold it, but they will stonewall, but we're going to keep on pushing on this.
Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel to catch all the latest news from Judicial Watch.